that you took the time to prepare for this and give back to our community by doing this. So thank you so much. Feel free to introduce your colleagues, and I'm going to just pass it on over to you. We usually run about 45 minutes-ish, and then some time for questions at the end. So.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Cynthia. Hi, everyone. My name is Erica Bell. I work with Advanced Behavioral Health Analysis. We are an applied behavior analysis therapy provider. We will go more into what that means, what that looks like, and how that's relevant to all families and all environments. I have some of my colleagues joining me. Our headquarters office is in Florida on the Panhandle. So we have Mr. Chris Brown. He is a BCBA for ABA. We have, let me see who's all here. We have Miss Tatey. She is one of our new members. She's also in training to get her BCBA. And we have Ryan Murphy, who is one of my colleagues here in Texas. He assists me with kind of directing and establishing our company and organization here. And I'm currently in progress with getting my assistant behavior analyst certification. So yes, I've been in the field for about 8 years. Now I can't see everybody. Maybe I'll come back. So I've been in the field for about 8 years. I started basically doing lots of teen social groups and have over the years developed, worked with a wide variety of kids, all different levels, all different ages, from 1.5 years old all the way to 21 years old. And so I would like to also kind of meet some of you that are joining us. So I have, what age are your children? What is your profession, just in case we have any teachers or healthcare professionals, if it's relevant, you could say that. And then what do you wish to gain for the next hour? So anyone could feel free to speak up and do their intro, or you could put it in the chat box. And I will try to see if I could see you guys. Oops. Mr. Chris, too, if you want to share maybe your introduction, you can.
All right, thank you, Ms. Erica. As Erica said, my name is Christopher Brown. I am the clinical director of ABA, or Advanced Behavioral Health Analysis, here in the Panhandle of Florida. We do have a satellite branch out in the Fort Worth area as well. I've been in the field for going on 11 years now, I'd say. I've been a BCBA going on 2 now. As most of us do in the field, I've bounced around primarily all over the country, between New York, Boston, Colorado, and here in Florida, and soon to be Texas as well. So I usually have a lot of experience with, teenage adolescents, males. Usually because I'm a guy and I get put with the more aggressive, more, I wouldn't say challenging, fun kids. I like to say fun kids, with lower vocal abilities. So I'm kind of a big, verbal behavior nut. So that's my introduction.
Thanks, Chris. Yes, so this webinar we open it up to all families, and I would love to hear a little bit about your kids so we can make it relevant to everybody. If you could put something in the chat box just so we could I'll keep it general. We're talking about all kids here. The strategies and methods that we use in ABA are very versatile. ABA is mostly, applied behavior analysis is about understanding behavior. So we're all human beings, we all have behavior, and understanding that works across the board. It's not a cookie cutter approach, but the strategies are, they work in all different ways. see. Okay, so when
Yeah, and if the families feel more comfortable, just put maybe what school their child attends, then we can know if they're elementary or secondary, and that could give you some age ranges too. We just have one who's got younger 5 and 8 and a kindergarten teacher. I saw that. Awesome.
here we go.
Year old in kindergarten. Great. Thank you. I have a 14-year-old.
Ooh, 14, very fun age. Yes, and I'm kind of like Chris too. I've worked with all levels from less independent to very independent, from older adolescents, you know, preparing for jobs. And right now I have a client who's 1.5, so all different stages and variabilities. So briefly, we'll go over what the agenda will look like. So we will talk just a little bit about ABA, just because that's what we do, and that's the fundamentals of what we'll be learning about and how it's relevant, again, across all environments and all individuals. Mostly ABA is most well known as an intervention for autism. I said we will be targeting all different children and their behaviors. Function, so we'll talk about the why. So the function, when you hear that word, you know that means the why of the behavior. Chris said the what, challenging me earlier. The ABCs of behavior, so this is what comes before, which we call the antecedent, what the behavior looks like, and then the consequence. So when you hear consequence, I don't want you to think punishment or something bad. Consequence in ABA in our field just means what happens directly after the behavior. So that's what we want to look at, what happens before, what the behavior is, and then what's happening after. I see we have 17-year-old boys. I see. Oh, thanks for sharing. Looking for better strategies to keep family moving in the right direction. Very good. Thank you guys for sharing. We also have reinforcement, so we will talk about how that affects behavior. And then lastly, we'll talk about motivation and contingencies. We have our next webinar that we'll be doing, I think is in 2 weeks, and we'll talk more about strategies. So I barely at the very end briefly touch on, you know, because we'll learn all this stuff about behavior and the why, and then, well, what do we do about it, right? So join our next one. We'll dive into strategies. So we'll briefly talk about motivation and contingencies and how that's related to behavior. I wish this stayed up. Every time I click, then everyone disappears. Okay, so what is applied behavior analysis, or we say ABA because applied behavior analysis is a mouthful. To date, behavior analytics scientists have basically been studying the field over many years, but ABA is generally new. It's about 30 to 40 years old. We are predicting the ways in which behavior is learned and how it changes over time. So the underlying theme of much of this work has been the product of circumstance. Again, there's that consequence. And then also the events that affect the behavior. So there's our ABC. What is happening before? What is this? That's basically causing the behavior along with the consequence. So that could be reinforcing. They're both going into what's causing that behavior. Behavior analysts have used this information to develop various techniques, strategies, approaches for analyzing behavior and promoting positive behavior to ultimately improve and change lives. So sometimes ABA, people get confused on what it is and they think we're trying to control or change. You know, when we say we're trying to change behavior, of course it's for the benefit of the family and of the child. We are very intentional about those behaviors. Ideally, a therapist would be intentional about those behaviors, and we always want to use it to promote a desired behavior, a more functional behavior, something that can assist them so that they're able to, you know, to function and live the best and to the highest degree that they can. If there's challenging behaviors, and that's not always functional, and those could have negative effects, those could lead to, you know, and with my teen group right now, we're talking about the consequences, as in what happens after our behavior. And something might be getting yelled at, getting in trouble, losing privileges. And as you get older, those lead to worse consequences, you know, and so it's important to know those. And then the techniques in ABA generally involve teaching individuals, like I said, just more effective ways, better strategies, and a lot of it has to do with communication, teaching communication to get what we're wanting, basically. So we have the functions of behavior, as we've kind of touched on. I like this quote here, which I was almost about to say because I love it so much. All behavior has a communicative intent. So there's something, when you see something, whatever it is, however frustrating it might be or difficult it might be, there's something that, you know, your child or that individual is trying to communicate. And that's where we come with our functions. So in ABA,
this is your house.
In ABA, we have 4 functions, which now research is kind of leading us towards 2, which we'll talk about. So we have generally escape, access, attention, and sensory. Attention and sensory are now going more under access. So really we have 2 major functions of behavior, which is escape and access. We will go into these. So what do escape behaviors look like? So this goes into identifying the behaviors. We're not talking about the before yet or the after yet. We're just talking about what the behaviors look like. So the topography of the behaviors. So escape behaviors. This is typically to avoid, delay, or end something unpleasant or non-preferred. So some of these examples of what that might look like would be stalling, procrastinating. Maybe you have a teenager or a kid who's ignoring you, or they're playing their video game and you say turn it off and they just keep playing and playing, and you're turn it off, they're just playing, you know. But well, that's also a little bit of access, but maybe they're escaping whatever they're supposed to do next, you know. It's time to go to bed, turn that off. And there's little both. Sometimes there's dual functions, so there's might be more than one reason why they're doing what they're doing. Engaging in another task instead. So maybe they're supposed to be mowing the lawn and instead they're talking on the phone, or, you know, that could be many other things. Maybe they're on the phone all the time. And then maybe it could just mean keeping to themselves. Maybe this is an environment and they're just more wanting to kind of be on their own, maybe reclused. If anyone would like to share any ideas of what they think maybe their child might have some escape behaviors going on, it might be hard to identify that based on, because the antecedent and the consequence are also go into identifying the functions. But if anyone has anything to share, either in the chat box or they could just speak up and talk, or Mr. Chris, if you have an example that you want to share. Putting you on the spot.
Well, the classic escape behavior that you study quite a bit is, you know, you get into the car and you hear that beeping noise of the seatbelt, you know. So you're like, I don't want to hear the beeping noise. So what do? You buckle up so you don't have to hear that beeping noise. Basically, you're trying to avoid or delay something from occurring. You know, taking Advil for a headache is another, you know, common example of escape behavior. You're trying to, you know, get rid of the headache or avoid the headache. So you take the pain medicine. So those are 2 pretty general common escape behaviors that you'll see. I like the procrastinating. I think we've all done this quite a bit throughout our lives. You know, I can't tell you how often my house gets clean when there's a big project that I need to do. But It does.
Right. So I like those examples, Chris, because they're not just your typical like, oh, that behavior is bad. That is identified as a not good behavior. Like it could be something that, like you said, when you hear that beeping noise, they do that on purpose. Whoever put that in the car system was probably a behavior analyst, because they know, let's make this really aversive so that people will be more motivated to buckle their seatbelt. So that's exactly that type of contingency that they set up there, and the strategies that they were using, which is exactly why I say, ABA, the principles behind it, the strategies could be utilized across the board with so many different things. It's very versatile. Yeah, and then if anyone wants to share some of their own maybe escape behaviors, like Chris is saying, if there's a big project, he'd rather be cleaning, or, maybe you have to clean, but you'd rather go do your project instead. Mine, I'm a procrastinator for sure. What else?
What does it look like with younger kids? Can you give me, we had several like with 5, 6, or 7-year-olds. What would they do? And
So a big one that I've seen is, say there's work involved, I need you to do this, and they might run, or they might cry or start having a tantrum. That could be some form of escape. Or maybe it's time to leave. We have to leave, or we can't play anymore. It's time, like a transition. We see a lot of escape behaviors during those, which a lot of the time might look like arguing, might look like, oh, why? I don't want to. Trying to go into that banter, trying to negotiate. That might be something that you see if maybe with a younger kid or with teenagers. Okay, we'll go into our next. So again, these are the two major ones, escape and access. And then the other two, attention and sensory, will go under access. But that's still, I think the field is still working that out. So access, to receive a preferred item or participate in an enjoyable activity. So some of those examples might be like a child wanting to buy something at the store. Again, whoever made those store layouts was behavior analysts. They put all the candy, all the toys at the bottom, right by the checkout, so your kids could grab them and put them on the, on the belt and give you a hard time. And you're like, the person's talking to you, so there's pressure, and you don't want to be yelling at your kids. You're like, fine, just put the candy on, it's fine. They just got access. And so maybe more screen time, as we talked about. If they're, you say, okay, let's turn that off, and they just keep playing, wanting sweets or snacks, maybe some brownies, or wanting, maybe they don't want to eat their dinner, but they would rather eat their dessert. They're ready for dessert, wanting candy, staying up late at night. If, again, maybe they're with their friends, or maybe they're playing with their toys. We might find some access behaviors happening, which again looks like bantering, maybe ignoring, maybe trying to negotiate or argue or cry, have a tantrum. Those types of things typically there's something going on here where it's, okay, maybe they're wanting access to something, or maybe they're wanting to escape something. Mr. Chris, do you have any good examples to share?
Access for little kids. Absolutely. So, there all kinds of tangibles, all kinds of like access to toys, access to activities, access to fun events. So many things happen throughout the day that, especially with the little guys, that you'll see like, oh my goodness, I just want to go run and play on the swing, without regard to, there's a street right in front of you, staying with adults, it's just, you'll see a lot of that type of behavior out of the little guys, out of the older kids, the teens, the same thing, just it just looks a whole lot different. They'll try a lot of times to engage in appropriate functional communication, but if it's not working out the way that they might think that it should, then more than likely problem behavior could arise from those situations. But yeah,
Yes.
access mostly to tangibles and activities. Think of like toys and, fun things to do. Like, we live here in
That might
Florida.
look just like running off, like you said, oh, swing, running, and you're thinking, hello, there's a street, you didn't ask, where are you going? I don't know. And so, or water too, that's a big, kids usually like the water, some do, and will just run straight to the water, and you're thinking, wait a minute, you have to ask first. Attention. So again, this would be under access to attention. That basically means just desiring for access to some sort of social interaction. So for example, that might look like stating the name over and over. I put mom, 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 mom. I think a lot of us have heard that, understood that. Fishing for compliments or validation. Hey, look what I did. And some of this isn't always bad. We're human beings. So of course we're going to want attention. That's what humans do. And all things want attention. My dog comes up to me and wants attention. And so it could look very different, and it's not always bad, but it can, if a person's not getting attention and we're attention seeking individuals, then it can get to a point where, well, what do I have to do to get attention? So again, maybe fish for compliments or some type of validation. And then if you're not getting it, it might be very repetitive. Maybe kids who are the class clown, or at home they're the funny clown, or they like to tell jokes. Those might be inappropriate jokes. Maybe with their teenagers, or if they're kids now, I think, are watching or listening to certain things at younger ages, and you start hearing these jokes that may not be very appropriate. Crying or screaming might be some sort of attention seeking. Of course, babies at a certain age are very, of course not the age where they need something. That would be needing access to the bottle or something, but maybe crying just to be held, or screaming for maybe just randomly, my kid just randomly starts screaming and I don't know why. And then if we look at it, well, when you scream, you go over there and pick them up and then carry them with you. So maybe that's why they're screaming. Disruptive behaviors, you might see that for attention. So maybe towards the environment, maybe tipping something over, causing physical destruction, maybe harming someone else, that could possibly be for attention. Or maybe even one harming oneself. If I pinch myself or scratch myself, then maybe your family might come over and say, oh, are you okay? Please stop, it's okay, and give a bunch of attention, and it's okay, So if a person's not getting attention all the time, they might seek out some of these strategies to get attention if it's working, maybe engaging in an argument. Attention, I think I might have put this later in a slide, but it's not always what it may seem like, maybe positive, so maybe negative attention is better than no attention. So I'd rather get yelled at, otherwise I don't get talked to at all. So if I'm not getting talked to at all, yelling is some type of attention. At least I'm getting my parents' attention in some form. At least now they're noticing me, maybe that's the case. And I know it's hard, we don't always realize that, and there's no judgment there. It's like, or with the name, mom, 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 mom. It took 10 times before mom said, yes, sorry, what? And so there's, so that would be, I think that's our third, right? We have one more. Chris, would you like to share an example?
Yeah, I think attention happens quite a bit, especially for the younger kiddos. And like Miss Erica was saying, we can have dual functions kind of happening at the exact same time. A good example is, a child's trying to get out of doing a worksheet. So they engage in escape behavior, throwing a pencil, getting out of their desk, running around. All of a sudden it turns into, hey, they have an uncanny ability to look you dead in the eye from across the room, even when you're trying not to look. and it's like, hey, look at me, na 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 boo boo, you know, sort of
Oh
thing.
yeah, if you see your kid purposely, like, say, knocking something over and staring at you while they
Yeah.
knock it over, they just want you to say, don't do that. Or they get on the couch and maybe jump on the couch and they know they're not supposed to. But every
Also,
time they do, you're gonna say, stop it, get down.
Also, you'll see a lot of times you'll see serious problem behaviors occur for attention, whether it's self-injurious behavior or aggression towards other individuals. You know, they might bite themselves, they might hit, kick, bite, scratch others as well, in order to gain, you know, that attention from parents or caregivers as a whole, because it's not like we're gonna, you know, we're gonna try to stop that behavior, obviously, but you know, it's hard not to provide some attention to it in the process. So
Right.
the kids are very adept at gaining, you know, attention or gaining access or escape or, you know, the next function.
Right. Next, our very last is sensory. So a person's movement or actions provides physical and or physiological input. So what that means would be maybe they actually like the feeling of, you know, say it's, some people twirl their hair. You know, that might be, I really like the feeling of feeling my hair when it's twirled, but it's also when I twirl my hair, that calms me down. So there's that physiological part where, oh, when I do this, it's actually calming. So it might not only just feel good, but there's this inner thing that, you know, goes with our nervous system. So maybe twirling hair, maybe tapping or fidgeting, nail biting, or even a hug. And sometimes some of these behaviors, like these aggressive behaviors we were talking about, could be occurring because, oh, well, when I do this, mom comes over and hugs me, which is not only attention, but then there's also that physiological input of that physical comfort that brings. When I'm very overwhelmed, mom gives me a hug. Now I feel much better. So there's, again, that dual sensory attention. Who knows what else was happening? It could be triple function. That is, I mean, a lot of it too is even, say, running. Maybe these littles, 5 years old, you know, 3 years old, they are ready to move. They're going, they're wanting to run. They have a lot of inner energy that needs to be put out. So maybe they might, if you're trying to sit and have a calm movie night and they can't sit still and you're wondering what is, you know, why is my kid not sitting down, you know? And so there's maybe some type of sensory output that they're needing, or so there's the output and the input, you know, whether that's calming and an internal thing, or is it external? Am I needing this? Do I have all this pent up energy, this restlessness that I need to put out? So that's something that might be occurring as well. Any examples, Chris, or comments?
Oh, yeah, sensory. We all engage in sensory type behaviors. To get a little nerdy, in our field, we call it stereotypy. But clicking a pen, shaking a leg, you know, while you're sitting, anything and everything, whatever it may be that just calms you and only you. It's something you can get regardless of the environment. So just think of that.
Yes, so it would be across all environments, across all people. This is your own personal thing. This is probably one of the only, I think, one of the only functions that would be solely just personal. Okay, so I'm reading, my 6-year-old will do something sneaky like watch her tablet when it's bedtime, and we won't catch her at it. But then days later, she tells us about it. So she wants access, then attention. But how do I respond to this? Very good. So at the end, we will have specific questions like this, scenarios that we could go over. Thank you. That's a very good one. And I think very common too. So the ABCs, we have antecedent behavior consequence, which I briefly touched on in the beginning. Antecedent would be what happens directly before the behavior, and then the topography of the behavior. What does it look like? In ABA, we try to keep it objective. So not just say, my kid's cranky. Okay, what does cranky look like? You know, is it a tone? Is it a face, a certain, you know, facial expression? Or there's the dead man rule, you know, they're not listening. So, okay, well, how do you know they're not listening? And what exactly is it that they're doing that's makes you feel like they're not listening? Consequence, what immediately follows the behavior? So this is important in understanding how to find your function, because you find your function based off of what's following the behavior. And then, and also, so we call it the SD, or the discriminative stimulus, of what's happening before. So this means, say, you say, every time I walk in the door, my kid leaves the room. You know, maybe it's, so they're trying to escape you, and you're like, why do they want to escape me? That's hurting my feelings. I want to spend time with them, and they just want to be in their room by themselves. So it's what is happening directly before, what the behavior looks like, and then what's happening after. So this helps us identify how to approach what's happening, and then what's going into it, what's reinforcing it.
Yeah, Erica, I would say this can get really challenging when you're first starting out in the field, or you have a child on either on the spectrum, or you're trying to understand behavior as a whole. The best way that I learned it way back when was, what is happening? What is the child doing? What is the student, client, whomever? What is your spouse doing? Whoever it may be. What is happening in that moment? Then, you know, look what happened right before. You know, what happens 0 to 3 minutes usually, right, or within 3 seconds a lot of times for those little guys.
Mm-hmm.
What happened right before, and then you go back and you're like, well, what happened right after? Did they get access to what they wanted? Did they escape the demand? Did they engage in sensory type behaviors? Were they able to scratch that itch that they needed to scratch? Whatever it may be. But just know that consequences do not change the behavior that has already happened. They're only going to alter, or presumably alter, future occurrences of behavior, future behaviors that will occur. That's why consequences can be good, and they can be, you know, not so good. We like to talk about, you know, reinforcement and punishment, and basically all that means is, you know, does the behavior happen more often, or punishment, does the behavior go down? So, and that's all consequences basically do. So
yeah, so that's what's a little tricky, is most people hear the word punishment or consequence and they're thinking just these negative, they think of like a spanking or a grounding or something, and that's not what we are referring to in this field. We talk about punishment just means behavior is decreasing. So I do something and the behavior is decreasing. Positive or negative might meaning I'm adding something or I'm taking something away. So say, a lot of like positive punishment would be adding something to the environment to decrease that behavior. So usually that would be like a spanking or you know, of that nature. That's only one type though. But if you do negative punishment, it would be taking something away to decrease that behavior. So maybe you lost privileges to this. That would be all decreasing. But reinforcement is always meaning increasing behavior. So how can I get the desired behavior increased, which is what we would like to do. Those are positive strategies because, you know, there's been said there's like some effects if there's different methods used. So also, for an example of ABC, it would be, say, antecedent, clean up your toys. That would be the antecedent. I told my kid to clean up their toys. They started crying. That's the behavior. What was the consequence? Either I helped them, or they didn't have to clean them up, I just did it by myself, or I felt, I made them clean it up anyways, and then we moved on. So that's what that looks like. So it's a little simplified there. Sometimes looking at ABC, what does that mean? So it's simply just what happened before, clean up your toys. What happened, what was the behavior I did or didn't, and then what's happening after. Like Chris said, did they get to escape? Now they don't have to clean up their toys. Or did they get attention? Now you're saying, it's okay, don't cry, I'm here to help you. Maybe you pick them up or something of that nature. So that's what we usually look at when we're trying to figure out what's the behavior, why is it occurring, are we wanting to decrease it or increase it, basically how to go about it. So reinforcement here means, as we said, behavior continues when it is being reinforced, or basically it's being effective. So whether that's something good or a positive behavior that we like to see, something that's functional, or if that's something that, is not very functional, then so something's reinforcing it. Something is making it happen. If it's happening more often, that means it's being reinforced. So that means that at some level it's effective for whoever's doing that. Every time I cry, I get out of what I have to do. Or every time I run off and just take something without asking, well, I have access to it now. If I asked, maybe my mom and dad would say no, so I just won't ask. It may not appear to be reinforcing, as we said, that it may not appear to be positive, or maybe you don't like that. So you think, well, I don't like that, so I don't think it's reinforcing for them because I don't like that. But everyone likes different things. Not everyone likes chocolate. So something reinforcing for me or for one of your kids, say you have multiple kids, well, I keep yelling at this one and they stop, but when I yell at this one, they keep doing it more. So maybe they're liking that, and when you see that, that's something to think about is, well, they might like different things. Or maybe losing privileges. Maybe a big environment with a lot of kids is hard for some of your kids. Maybe they like to be off on their own more. So maybe they'll start, saying mean things, or if every time they do that, you take them away and say, okay, go to your room, or, maybe come over here, come do this with me instead. And they're like, oh, cool. Well, that's overstimulating for me. I don't want to be around all those people, all those kids. And your other kid might be a social butterfly and they love all the kids, they love all the people. And if you take them away, that is, that's hard for them. That's a hard consequence for them, but not all of your kids are the same. So one might like something and one might not. One thing about reinforcement is to be the cookie and the provider of the cookies. So we use that phrase in ABA, and what that means is the cookie is something that, reinforcing for most. Some people don't like cookies, okay, but the cookie would be, be the positive thing and be the one that your kid will come to you to provide those things. We try to control our environment in a way so that our kiddos that come to us see us as we're the fun, exciting, we're those for them. And we also provide all the fun and exciting things. That way they respond to us well. They are more willing to, I always say you're willing to go above and beyond for your boss when you like your boss, versus if you don't care for your boss, you're just, okay, I'm done. It's 5 o'clock, bye. And so, and then also catch them doing good any chance you can. Try to catch your kid doing well and make sure you're acknowledging that, reinforcing that, giving them, if they like praise. That's a big one that some people think might be reinforcing. Say your kid does something great. Maybe they share a story at the table and you're like, hey, thank you so much. Or like make a big deal about it. Oh, Timmy just got this award, or Timmy just got an A+. Wow, and everyone made a big deal, and Timmy's mortified. Timmy's so scared, and he didn't want all that attention. And all of a sudden now he never wants to share about getting an A+, never wants to even get an A+, because I don't want to get all the attention about it. So now maybe I'll start trying to get C's or, you know, whatever that is. It might look like, you know, I was just trying to praise them. You know, I thought maybe my kid would like that big introduction or a big praise, and not all kids do. Some kids are a little more shy, and they might like it better if you just went over and said, hey, good job, or something. Yeah. Chris, do you have anything to add?
Oh my goodness. Each one of these slides, we could go, if people spend entire, you know, master's and doctorate degrees on. There is so much behind reinforcement, punishment, behind each of the functions of behavior. But, you know, just look at reinforcement as basically what it comes down to is, you know, you want to reinforce the good behaviors, and you would like to not reinforce the undesirable behaviors. And that it can be really challenging to do in a lot of circumstances. But, you know, when you're trying to promote or trying to encourage new behaviors occurring, a lot of times it's functional communication, or choosing to do something else rather than engage in some sort of problem behavior. You're going to want to reinforce that on a very, very, very high reinforcement schedule. Just about every time that they engage in, you know, the appropriate behavior, definitely reinforce that with the things or activities or attention or escape or whatever it may be that they want. That way you can promote that behavior occurring in the future. It's kind of like it's the consequence. You want to reinforce the good behaviors, and you don't want to reinforce those challenging behaviors. So, you know, that's we look at challenging behaviors a lot of times, and, you know, parents will come in and be like, I just want them to stop doing this, you know. So we look at it at the replacement behaviors. What can we give these children or these individuals tools in their toolbox that they can pull from to where they get the same thing, just in a different way, a more socially appropriate way to gain the same exact thing. And hopefully it's easier or just as easy as, you know, challenging behaviors.
Yes, we'll get a little bit more into that as well. And then again, next webinar in a couple weeks here, I'm sure, I don't know the exact date, I forget, I think it's April 8th, I think, is that correct? We'll be going into strategies. So all those we'll go into more. This is a lot about just understanding the basic fundamentals. So again, I like that you said, going along with catching and doing good, it's reinforcing whatever that is for them. So you might ask your own kid what, you know, or you might just know you might know that they're shy, and you might know that they don't want a big celebration when they do something great. You know what your kid likes, and if you don't, that's fine. You could ask, or, you know, spend some time with them and say, what is it? What would you like it if I did this? Or would you like to, it doesn't always have to be receiving a gift or a tangible or something. I know there's some concerns about getting tangibles or getting prizes or goodies, or, you know, throwing these presents at kids to get them to do certain things. And some people might think that's a bribe, and whatever it is, it could be spending time with your kid. They might just like, you know, everyone likes attention, like we talked about. Most people do, some people don't, but especially kids, especially little kids, a lot of them do. And just spending time with them might be something. Hey, would you like if you did this, then after school we could have, you know, 30 minutes of movie time, or maybe I could play a game with you. And that's how, you know, catch them doing good and praise them for that, or give them what they're what it is that they like. A lot of times with our teenagers, we have a hard time, or our kiddos who usually don't have any challenging behaviors, usually don't give us a hard time. It's harder for us to remember to catch them doing good because they're good all the time. But then when they do something out of the ordinary, or they start acting, start causing trouble or start having more challenges, then all of a sudden we start, maybe giving them that verbal reprimand or some sort. And maybe it's increasing. So maybe that's telling you something. If all of a sudden my kid was always so good and now, they're having these challenges, and I keep having to have this conversation with them, and I don't know why I keep having to do this. And, maybe again, that's going back to, well, that's when they get your attention. Or it could be something else, but definitely, especially with our kiddos, with all kiddos, but I know for me, it's hard to remember to give that praise because we tend to we have expectations for each person. And, your one kid might be always good. The other kid, you know them and they're troublemakers. And so when the troublemaker acts up, it's expected. But when the one who always follows the rules, always says yes, yes, ma'am, yes, mom, whatever you need, I'm there. And then they act up and you're like, whoa, wait a minute, you don't do this. So, remember to catch them doing good too. And even though they do good all the time, as much as you can, I guess, acknowledge that. We're almost done here. Oops. So this is our oops, I went way ahead. What's happening? There we go. So utilize the function as your reinforcer, as your motivation. So once you understand what it is they're wanting to access, so is it attention or is it escape? Are they wanting to get dessert? So say they say, hey, I want dessert, but they haven't eaten yet. And you might say, no, eat your dinner. Well, then they're like, do I get dessert even? Do I, is dessert in the picture? So now that you know their motivation, oh, they want dessert, well, maybe I could have them do something. Well, eat your vegetables first, then you get your dessert. Or maybe it's escaping from something. Maybe they don't want to do a certain task. Some parents utilize using escape. So say after dinner, you always have to wash the dishes. Your teenager always has to wash the dishes, but they don't like washing the dishes. They want to escape. So you allow them the escape under your contingency. So, okay, you don't have to wash the dishes tonight if you do this instead. If you complete all your homework first, or if you eat all your food on your plate, now you don't have to wash the dishes. So it's good to see what is their motivator, even if it's something that they can't have at the very moment. So say it's Xbox or something, or let's see, for a little kid, maybe it might be a toy. Okay, well, we can't have this just yet, but what can I set up, or what is it that you as a parent need your child to do? And how can now you have that motivator. Now you see, well, how can I use this to assist in what they're wanting to do, so that you both win. It's a win-win for you both. That way it's not just, mom or dad always says no, so I'm just going to take it, and that's how those things happen, versus if they're communicating and they're communicating in a functional way, or even if they're not, and you're noticing, I see you're not wanting to do this, I see you're escaping this. Okay, so how can I give you this as much as I can, but under a certain circumstance or under a certain contingency?
So Eric, the mom with the tablet situation, so would you say, for her to say, sweet child, there's nothing wrong with you having the tablet, but that time was not appropriate, because we know, my job is to make sure you're healthy and strong, and we know your body needs sleep. So would you try to work something out where the access to the tablet is okay? So it's not like you're saying that behavior was bad, it was the timing of the behavior, and then work how that would look like, so
yes,
she can have that access. and not be.
Yes, so I'm pulling it up now. So we'll reread it if anyone else joins. So it's my 6-year-old will do something sneaky, like watch her tablet when it's bedtime. We won't catch her at it, but then days later she tells us about it. So she wants access and attention, but how do I respond to this? So one thing, yes, you could have that conversation, maybe removing the tablet to a different room when it's bedtime. Maybe, you know, keeping it in your room so that she would physically have no access to it. And then maybe giving her time before, you know, if you eat your dinner or if you know, whatever it is that you might need your 6-year, I say her, it might be a boy. Oh, it is a girl. Okay, she. I had to read that a couple of times. So, you know, maybe if there's anything that you would like her to do, whether that's play nicely with your brother or sister, or maybe brush your teeth or something, then you could say, okay, first do this, then you could get 5 or 10 minutes of tablet before bedtime. When it's bedtime, it'll need to be turned off, then it's mine. And then tomorrow you could have it, you know, in the morning or whenever, and set up that contingency. So contingency basically is just a guideline or some type of rule that you establish with your child.
And the fact that she's coming and telling her, wouldn't you somehow like reinforce that that was a good behavior to come and talk to mom about it? Or is that because she might have been looking for attention for that? You know, how does a parent handle when the kid tells on themselves?
I think I would probably have to see it more. It's hard to say with just that information. So how do you respond if she tells on herself? So it would be, I would ask you, you know, how are you responding when she tells you? Is it, do you give it a lot of attention? Is she getting reprimanded? Are you saying thanks for telling me? But, you know, what does that look like?
So I try not to give her much attention. I kind of ignore it. When she tells me, I say, you know, you're not supposed to do that. And then that's just kind of the conversation stops.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, but we're eating now, or but we're doing this now. Like, so I'm sure my response isn't correct.
Actually, not necessarily. You know, if she's seeking your attention for it and you're not really giving it, that would be correct. And also one thing that, you know, that would be considered what we call our ignoring approach, which doesn't mean, you know, ignoring in a bad way, but it just means I'm not going to give attention to that, you know, this behavior that isn't desired. So you're telling on yourself, but you know, maybe she's purposely doing wrong things, or maybe not. Maybe she is just trying to figure out how that all works. So if you'd like, you could say, you know, well, I'm glad you told me. Keep it very casual, very minimal, and then also maybe give her a replacement. You know, along with ignoring, I always say to give some type of replacement to teach functional communication. So she's communicating functionally by telling you, I did this, but before that, did she communicate functionally? You know, if you want tablet time, you could ask for it at this time, or, you know, set it up beforehand so that you're shaping that behavior to make it functional. So instead of, you know, we're less worrying about that she's tattling on herself, but more worrying about that she's sneaking. You know, that's the behavior we're wanting to target, that she's either lying or sneaking or whatever that is. So, you know, what's happening there? Is she not getting access to that as much as maybe she would like? Maybe you could set something up where it's very, you know, clear guidelines, as it says. First, you know, if you do these things, you could have the tablet. And then it's very clear whether she earned it or not. Did she earn it? Did she do what she agreed to do? Or did she not do it? Well, sorry, we don't get it. So I think sometimes if a kid is wanting access to something, so if that's her, you know, sneaking, getting the tablet, that there's a way where we could give them a little, so almost not creating satiation, but so not an overabundance amount, but giving them some access, feeding that what we find their motivator to be. If that's access, then give them a little bit. If that's attention, maybe before bedtime, or, you know, whenever she might be wanting some type of your attention. Would you agree with that, Chris, or do you have anything else to add?
Oh gosh.
Keep it short. We're almost done. We only
to-
have 5 minutes, Chris. So
Yeah.
just a snippet.
I would say it's so hard off that little bit of information, to be completely honest. You know, there's so many things that you know, we would have to look at, and look at the environment. You know, what's happening around, you know, your little girl as a whole, to kind of analyze what's going on there. I don't know. I think what Erica said is some pretty good advice, just as a start, though.
Yeah, so again, it's hard to say with just a little knowledge of it. It would be, you know, is it happening across multiple, you know, environments, areas, and, you know, what else is going on? But I guess just a little bit, I hope that helped. Just really quick, again, motivation. If you're not sure what your child is wanting, you could ask them, you know, what is it that, what are you getting at? What are you trying? Sometimes in an argument, if one of my older teens is trying to argue or something, I'm saying, what is it that you're wanting? You know, what, and not that I'm going to give it, but it's, okay, now I know what at least they're wanting, or what they're motivated by. And then how can we work something out? Setting clear guidelines. That might be saying first, then. So first we have to do this, then you could get what it is that you're wanting to access, or maybe using charts. So if you have 5 days of doing something specific, then we could do this. Or basically your kid would get access to some sort of reinforcer. Again, that doesn't have to be a toy. That could be time with you. That could be maybe a dessert, or maybe baking cookies together or something. Timers are really great to use, if, you know, ahead of time, if your kid maybe has a really hard time with transitions, to set a timer, or you know, hey, we're leaving the park, you have 5 minutes. When you hear the timer, it's time to go. Written agreements might be nice with maybe some older kiddos, or if you feel like your kid does well, say if you say, okay, you do, which it feels silly in the beginning, but you'd be surprised how well they actually work, because it's written on paper and you can show them, look, you agreed to do this, and this is our contingency, you know, this is our guideline. And then just being consistent as possible. Because, you know, that's why maybe you'll see some of your children go to dad for something, or go to mom for something, and not the other, because I know when I go to, you know, mom always gives me cookies, but dad always says no, so I'm going to go to mom. So there's consistency there that they see. And if you're setting up, the more consistent you are with these contingencies, like first this, then this, and it's very matter of fact, very black and white, that makes it easy for them to always kind of know what to expect, which is very important. Okay, I think we have a short amount of time for questions, if anyone else has any questions.
You know, our human behavior is so complex. And I love the intent of the parents of us, you know, on here. Our intent is we just really, really want to do it, quote, right. And there's so many ways that could look of what right is. So Erica, I appreciate that your reminders tonight of just really trying to dig deep into trying to figure out the whys. Mm-hmm. You're right. In 2 weeks, we'll come back and really dig deeper into the strategies that you guys offer the kiddos and the parents, right?
Right. I know it was hard for me to not put those in, because they literally go hand in hand. And I knew that was what was next. And again, Chris said people get doctorates in this, and we could focus on antecedents for years. So we could, you know, each one of these could be literally talked about and dived into for long periods of time. So it's hard to put it in a couple slides here, but I hope this helped.
I have one thing to share. I have one thing to share real quick. I don't think this really blurs any lines or anything, but no matter what your approach is, there's so like what was just stated, you know, human behavior is so complex and so intricate and so intertwined with everything in and around us. But if you're consistent with what's going on around your kids and your children and your clients and those around you, as consistent as you possibly can be, both you guys as husband and wife, or as teachers, or as grandparents and parents, if everybody is on the same page and providing consistency with whatever you guys have decided to do, more than likely you will see changes in your children's and clients' behaviors.
Good reminder, Chris, because I do think sometimes we can make it more than what it even needs to be. So if we can just find that little nugget, that will make big differences. So
Yeah.
wonderful. Well, thank you all again. It is our time to wrap it up for the night. And yeah, you go ahead and share your contact info.
Go ahead. Thank you so much, everybody. Yes, thank you for joining us. If you would like to talk privately or reach out for any more information on what we do and what we provide, what we offer, here's my email listed. We have this number here. You could call and reach us as well. Or if you'd like to just stay up to date on our events and kind of what we're doing in the near future, then you could follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/ABBA Therapy. I think that's it. So join us in a couple of weeks here. I'm sure we'll have some flyers going out for our next, which will be the strategies. So now hopefully we get somewhat of an understanding on why the behavior is happening, what might be causing it, how is it being reinforced? Maybe taking that ABC on your own. What is, what's going on before, then what's it looking like, what's happening after, and trying to work on that, and how can I utilize this to my benefit and to functionally target this, whatever is happening. So again,
Okay, great.
Let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. And they could also keep up with what's parenting webinars are coming up just on our Facebook, not on our Facebook, sorry, but on our website. And it's just the district website, just www.nisttx.org/PE for parent education. And we always put it in the emails too that go out to our community and our parents. So thanks y'all so much. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you back in a couple weeks.
Thank you.
Okay.